What do you think made these tracks? Animal, human, other?
I think it was an extraterrestrial myself. We can't prove it, but we can't find anybody who knows what could have made tracks like that.
What do you think a being that made those tracks would look like, or
Well,
characteristics?
very muscular, heavy. There wasn't any dragging trail track, so it'd have to walk upright. It looked like whatever made them did not. When a human walks through the sand, they tend to kick up sand behind them. In these tracks, there was no sand kicked up behind them, so whatever made them picked their foot up and plodded down very heavily. So I'm picturing this as not a human track and not an animal track. I believe it was alien, although, like Diane said, we can't prove it. But the individual that made this track, I'm picturing as being very heavy, stocky built, not exceptionally tall, maybe up to 6 feet at the most. It had no tail, there was no drag mark, but the individuals picked up their feet and put them down very heavily. And when they got up to the reed, where the reeds start, they just simply disappeared.
It must have been something very large and possibly tall, because the human prints that were around it did not have the impression in the sand like this print had. So it had to be something very heavy. And I thought possibly tall. So those were my first impressions. Something very large, heavy, tall, and possibly the inverted knee. And to me, it looked like a webbed foot. And so I thought it could have been some sort of a reptile impression, footprint. Another thing I thought was that the prints were right in front of each other. Like with a human print, you have your prints are more side by side. These were like one print here, and then the next print was right ahead of it. And the next print was ahead of that.
We're trying to find some answers for the footprints that we've seen. They're so unusual. They were deep, about this far into the sand, and the heel was round, and it's not typical of an animal. Besides that, when whatever it was stepped down, the sand went right straight up through and spiked. So there weren't any toes. I don't know if it was webbed or what it was, but it was so very unusual. And to have that deep of a footprint, I thought it had to be something quite heavy. And I think my opinion was that it was kind of tall because it had to pick its foot up and put it down straight, because there was no heel drag and there was no heel to toe type motion.
An alien contact of ours, Monn, explains the footprints found on the beach on the morning of June 6, 2006. Quote, "The footprints you saw on the beach were made by non-human beings. They were not of this planet. There were two of them. One was about 5 feet 9 inches, and the other was about 6 feet. The smallest was at least 300 pounds. Thus the deep impression of the footprints in the sand. The young one was smaller. The other one was older and heavier. Thus the two sets of footprints. The color of their skin, what I think you would call a sea green. Not really a dark green, not really a light green, but it does have a green tint to the skin. The skin is relatively smooth, but bumpy. They don't have scales like most reptilians have. On their skin they have something like fine fuzz, but it's not hair. The legs are of medium length, but very stocky, just as the whole being is stocky. Their feet are not webbed like a reptile, but are broad. Their footprint is round in the back. They do well in the water and can swim really well. although they do breathe air. Although looking somewhat reptilian, these beings do not have a tail. They have just a little snub. It's not one that would drag in the sand, or how you say, flip the tail to knock someone over. They actually walk with their foot going straight down. They do have knees that bend backward, just the opposite of yours. I would like to say something about their eyes. You know how your pupils are round, and most reptilians are kind of up and down? Well, these are sideways. They are elongated sideways. Their eyes are kind of a goldish green tint. I don't quite know how to explain it. I guess you would say they are kind of a goldish color with a greenish colored center. Their faces and heads look almost frog-like. It's not like a crocodile, and it's like, I would say, more frog-like. They do not have gills to breathe, but they can hold their breath for a long period of time. Therefore, they do enjoy the water. They have no shark-like teeth. Their tongue kind of rolls out. It is longer than normal for their body size, but it's normal for them. I would put them in the category of a reptilian, but not like the ones people normally associate as reptilian. This is a category of aliens that you have not come across before. They came from space on a craft, although they do well in the water. Their arms are relatively short compared to their body, and they also are very stocky. The hands are very broad, and the fingers are relatively short. There is skin in between the fingers, but only well, looking at your hands, looking at your fingers, they would be webbed only up to your first knuckle from the hand, and the rest would be free. They have broad hands like an oar or paddle that help them swim better in the water. They came on the beach by way of a craft in the water. Then they walked on the beach toward the cottage. They had to abort the mission because they could not come any closer because of the light shining from each of your souls. The tracks ended because they were elevated or levitated back into the craft by what you would call a beam. That is why the footprints just disappeared. These beings are drawn to the light, but they also respect the light of the soul. We don't consider them of the light. They did not have permission to be there at that time. They are interested in this area because of the light workers that are here. I keep telling you that. They are searching for what, I have no idea, but they are drawn to the light that emanates from light workers. They might have just been inquisitive, but they were escorted off the planet. And let me say this, it is a good thing you left when you did. I'm not sure what would have happened. They came onto the beach not long after you left. It is a good thing you followed your instincts and left when you did.